Dulcimoon Talks.
Where music, connection, and inspiration meet.
I'm DJ Hamoris.
And I'm Erin May Lewis.
Together, we're your hosts for these beautiful conversations that celebrate the vibrant women of the dulcimer community.
Since June of 2022, Dulcimoon Talks have brought you into the lives and stories of extraordinary women, leaders, teachers, producers, and artists who are shaping and sharing the art of the dulcimer in unique ways.
Our guests come from all walks of life. Many balance their passion for dulcimers with careers far outside the music world, yet they all share one thing: a deep love for the dulcimer and the joy it brings to teaching, practicing, performing, and creating.
Each episode is an intimate journey exploring personal musical paths, sources of inspiration, and the beautiful ways dulcimers weave into our lives. Think of it as the kind of meaningful conversation you'd have while sharing a meal at a festival. A mix of insight, laughter, and heartfelt connection.
Whether you're a long-time dulcimer enthusiast or just curious about this amazing world, Dulcimoon Talks are here to inspire, inform, and delight.
We release new talks twice monthly and are thrilled to have you on this journey with us. Make sure to subscribe and join the growing community as we honor the magic of dulcimers and the people who make them sing.
Dulcimoon Talks, sharing stories,
celebrating connections,
keeping the music alive.
Hello, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to Dulcimoon Talk number 60. I'm Erin May, and I'm joined today by Jody Marshall, who is coming to us from Northern Virginia in the Washington, D.C. area, and we are so delighted to have you today.
I am delighted to be here. This is really great to have this forum for women musicians.
Yeah. It's a pretty powerful thing for us to connect with each other and share our stories and struggles and lift each other up, and love it. All right. So, let's just go back to the beginning of your journey and tell us about how music came to be so important to you in your life.
Yeah, so music was always a part of my household, our household, because my dad was a professional jazz musician. And I just sort of, would absorb everything I heard.
And what was his instrument?
What wasn't his instrument?
One of those jazz musicians.
One of those. Actually, I think that played a small part in my choosing the hammered dulcimer, because he was like, "What is that thing?"
And you were like, "Finally, I found one."
So he played. His love was really jazz guitar.
Okay.
But he also played bass. He played vibes for a while. Tenor, banjo, mandolin. He dabbled in some other things. So he just, had it all going on. By the time I came along, he was mostly like doing the strolling thing with the banjo and but he would play in clubs. He would come home, 2 a.m. sometimes. He'd bring his buddies with him. I'd be trying to sleep and they'd be playing music downstairs. So, at the time, I think I resented it because I had to get up and go to school the next day. But overall, I think it was a really good influence. And my mom, she never had any training at all, but she had a great singing voice. And she wrote folk songs. That's what she was drawn to, folk and traditional music. And although I loved hearing the jazz, I wasn't drawn to playing it. So I think I got that side of things from my mother. And then just hearing the dulcimer for the first time, that was just, I'm sure a lot of us have had that experience.
Yeah, so tell us the story. What was the first time you heard it?
I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and there's a national park near here. It's for the performing arts called Wolf Trap Farm Park. And it's got a big amphitheater, and it's got, all kinds of areas around it where they can host musicians and festivals. They used to have a festival there, a big national folk festival. And they had all these different acts from all over the world. I went with a friend, all these wonderful stages. And I'm walking down towards a stage and I hear this enchanting sound kind of wafting over the meadow. I'm like, what is that? So I followed the sound and it led me to just this little tent where this guy was set up and playing. And that's where I stood for hours, just watching him, because I thought, I've never seen anything like that. And I love the way it sounds. I think it looks cool being played, like little dancing
Right.
hammers. And
Yeah.
later I learned that was probably Sam Rosetta, who had a booth
Wow.
there. Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
I,
cool.
yeah, and I got my first real, I mean, I had I had an instrument before that, but I got my first professional model from him. So kind of came around full circle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I fell in love, basically.
How old were you?
God, I don't know. I think I was still in high school, but I didn't play for till many years after I got out of college. So, and that was another story. I'd always wanted to learn. And I had this boyfriend who did woodworking. So I tried to talk him into making me a dulcimer. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's just a trapezoid. How hard can it be, right? That's what I thought.
A trapezoid with a lot of strings.
I was naive. So I kept like dropping these hints. And then one Christmas, he managed to find an inexpensive one, which was actually a Chinese yangqin.
Oh.
He
Uh-huh.
found it we have a store here in the area called the House of Musical Traditions. And they sell instruments from all over the world. And they had a bunch of yangqins. And he bought it, gave it to me for Christmas. Best present ever. Had no idea what to do with it. And it had like 4 strings per course. So that was, I learned to tune, pretty thoroughly because of that.
Yeah.
But that's what I started on, and had these really long bamboo hammers,
Right.
and
Uh-huh.
I took my first class with that instrument. And then I saved my pennies up and got the Rosetta Augusta Grand.
Mm-hmm.
But the sad part about that story is that the boyfriend who gave it to me for Christmas, I kind of hate to put it this way, but I got more involved with the dulcimer and less involved with the relationship. So he became this kind of a dulcimer widower, and we didn't last too long after that.
Uh-huh.
But I'll always be grateful to him. It was the best gift ever.
Uh-huh. Yep. Sometimes you just gotta take the gift and say thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Sayonara.
Oh, how funny. You also played piano, right?
Yeah, I started on piano.
Me too.
I think I was probably 9 years old. I could not wait to take piano lessons. I just was, let's just do it now. But, they set it up like a month or so in advance. And I remember we took this little vacation to Ocean City, like a week before I was going to start piano lessons. And I was on this raft out in the waves, and my dad and brother were holding on to the raft, except this huge wave came along and washed me off the raft. And I remember actually rolling around in the waves. And I thought, I didn't think, I realized I could die, but I didn't think, oh no, I'm going to die. I thought, oh no, I'll never get to take piano lessons. So I know, isn't that crazy? So I washed up
Kind of
on.
funny the way our brains sometimes are like, but that's the thing.
Yeah, that's what I was looking forward to. Not the rest of my life, just taking piano lessons.
Just the piano lessons. Uh-huh.
So I started on piano, and that was, I know I'm biased, but I think it's the best instrument for learning theory, learning about chords, learning about intervals. Because, okay, the space between your thumb and your pinky, you can make a fifth, and there's 5 fingers, all that stuff. So
Yeah, you can really, really see how it lays out on
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
instrument.
yeah.
I think the thing that I have found from piano to stringed instruments that is sometimes confusing to people is that there are multiples of one note.
Yes.
Find the same note in more than one place, because on the piano you got one place that makes that sound and only one place, and then you get to a hammer dulcimer or you get to a mountain dulcimer and suddenly you can make the same sound in three different places, and people
Yes.
are like, what, how, what do you mean?
It is really confusing. And I'll admit, having come from piano, that was a stumbling block for me too. And the other thing was that the low notes were on your right side and the higher notes are on your left, which is the opposite. And whereas the piano is like horizontally linear, the dulcimer like has these sort of circular almost patterns and squares and rectangles and triangles and stuff.
Have you ever tried one of the piano hammer dulcimers that's laid out that way?
I had a student with one of those, and we managed, but
that's kind of what I've heard from everybody. I haven't experimented really deeply with either, but I am like, as much as it sounds like that would make it easier, I feel like for the actual playing of the instrument, it doesn't make it easier.
I mean, I would agree with that. I think, though, if you want to play, for example, klezmer music, it might actually be easier. And some classical music might lay better, but forget traditional music.
Yeah.
It's too complicated.
I remember Carmen Amrine showing me how the German hackbread is laid out too, and I think it's a little more like chromatic and a little less in boxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you're probably right that the kind of music you're trying to play on it. But if you're trying to play kind of diatonic American old time music in the kind of the styles of music that we tend to see at dulcimer festivals, that gets pretty hard to do on a piano laid out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have known a few people who played both.
Oh, switching back and forth seems like it would be really hard.
Yeah. I think Steve Schneider might have been one of them who played both, but he was great on piano to begin with and accordion. Although I have also known people who, they kind of have to focus on one or the other.
Yeah.
It's really hard to switch back and forth.
I think it would be.
Too much for my brain.
So did you study music in college? Did you take it that direction?
No, not at all. I took music appreciation, but
Did it make you appreciate music more or less?
More because, it laid out the different eras through history and all of that. And that was interesting. But I actually didn't have in my brain at all, I'm going to be a dulcimer artist. So what I focused on in college was environmental kind of studies.
Okay.
And biology. So when I got out of college and eventually got a job, that was a direction that I went in. And were it not for, life takes you in different directions. And sometimes we kind of waft around before we settle on something, and then we may waft around and settle on something else. But I got a job as a writer and editor at a nonprofit NGO environmental group. And that, lasted for like almost, 8 or 9 years. And then the organization decided to lay off several divisions, one of which was our division. And we focused on writing materials, educational materials for teachers and kids. So along the way though, I'd also been doing music, and I had, I was teaching a little bit, and I was playing out with a group that I just sort of found myself in by happenstance one day. That's another kind of fun story. But, when we all got laid off, I thought, oh, well, I can do more music. And I can do some of the writing and editing on a freelance basis. And as a matter of fact, I still do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way the music started happening was after I got a real dulcimer, I knew I needed to take some lessons. I didn't want to develop bad habits. I could figure stuff out by ear, but I also was interested in learning how to do Celtic and Irish embellishment. And fortunately, I live right around the Beltway from Karen Ashbrook. So I connected with her,
Yeah.
and that was invaluable. Great teacher, great player. She's always been my trailblazer. She's the one that got me into teaching at festivals, because she at one point asked me to be her assistant at Augusta Heritage Center, which doesn't have a hammer dulcimer anymore, but it did for a long time. And then, that kind of went from there, the festivals. She also got me into the therapeutic music, which we can talk about a little bit later, but or now or whenever. I feel like I'm just
right. We can try to tell the story in a linear order. We can just go where it leads. That's okay with me too.
Go with the breeze. Yeah.
I do think, the vast majority of us, I think, have somebody who is like, this person sort of brought me along.
Yeah.
And then helps us find our footing and then find our own voice in the space.
I think that's one thing about this community that is just so awe-inspiring. It's so supportive, so collaborative, nice people.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm like, we need more of this. Make sure that collaborative programming, and that's for sure my passion. Because I've been the beneficiary of that, I suppose. Yeah. I want to make sure it keeps.
And then it's fun to be able to do the same thing for others. But, by that time I was playing in a band. I'm like, how'd I get here? But the way I got there was, I was at this party in a place called Tacoma Park, Maryland, which is near the House of Musical Traditions. That's neither here nor there, but for people who might be listening, who know the area.
Sure.
And the party, it was a music party, and it went on all night. And by the time the sun rose, I was still playing. I'd only been playing probably a few months. I was still playing with a guy playing concertina and another guy playing guitar. And the guy that was playing the concertina was lying on the floor with his eyes closed, half asleep, playing as the sun came up through the windows. And we said, hey, let's be a band, So we formed a band called Ironweed, and we did a lot of like Renaissance festivals and sea shanties, music that we played at the Renaissance Festival, which was like 300 years after the time of the Renaissance, but nobody cared. It was still traditional. And so that's when I was taking lessons from Karen, was sort of when that was starting to form, and it was great.
I'm just curious, because those middle of the night, hey, we should be a band things always seem like a great idea and rarely get followed up on. So my question is, you had the middle of the night moment that was cool, and then what was the next conversation that was like, no, really, I think it would be cool. Let's make it happen. Do you remember that?
There was no question. There was no discussion. It was like, okay, let's meet, on this day and have a rehearsal and see what we have in common.
Oh, you put a date in the calendar. That'll do it.
We did. Yeah. And the thing was that they had much more experience than me. And I was the newbie, and they had been in other groups. And so they had sort of like an in into some of the venues where we might play. And I remember our first real gig was at, it's called Balticon. It's like a science fiction convention. And that was an interesting experience. There were people dressed like Klingons, and, I never thought I'd find myself there, but that was what we did. So.
Yeah. And was it mostly Celtic style music?
Yeah, well, we did Celtic, but we also did a lot of English, because a concertina player played for a Morris team.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we would do Morris dancing and some English country dance. Sometimes they overlap. It was fun. And then the sea shanties. So I know, like, well, if I could still remember, I'm not going to sing any to you, but I'm like a harmony singer. That's my thing. I love that. I love like finding the part in the chord that I can contribute, you know. And so I would know like 100 choruses, but don't ask me to sing any verses because I have,
Because the verses don't have harmony.
who cares about that?
That's amazing. It's like I know all of the chord progressions to all of these songs. I can spit out the chord progressions because that's my thing. I'm like the chord player. But if you ask me the words to them,
I
I'm
know,
like,
I know.
I
I'm the
don't
same way.
know. I
I
just
played
know the
for
chords.
years. I know. I do the same thing. I played for years with a wonderful singer named Grace Griffith, who is no longer with us, sadly, but she was a, you know, like a kind of a star in the DC area to the extent that she had this really unusual voice that was perfect for Celtic music. And I learned to accompany singers by playing with her and her band. But unless there was a chorus that I also sang on, I couldn't tell you any words, which is ridiculous. Maybe I could tell you some, but I just didn't focus on that because I'm like, oh, here's where the harmony is going. Here's where the chord is going next. And oh, I'll walk down to that one, you know, those kind of considerations.
Uh-huh. But yeah, the things we internalize are just
Yeah.
different depending on
Yeah,
our focus.
absolutely. Yeah. And it takes all of us. It takes a village. I think
Yes.
that's the thing about music. That's one of my favorite things about being involved with music is the fellowship that develops playing with others. You know, I never set out to be this like solo performer. I love playing with others, and I love the sensation of the whole being greater than the sum of the parts.
Me too. And I was going to ask you about that because often just sort of the way the tradition is unfolding right now, a lot of people are playing solo.
Yeah,
And it sounds like you've always been involved more in bands and ensembles and collaborations. Um,
yeah. I
so,
mean, you know, we all do play solo, especially at the
Mhm.
festivals, because, you know, that's what you do. You get 20-minute slot or whatever,
Right.
and
You're hired to come and teach, and oh, by the way, will you also play
yeah,
in the concert?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but just being a part of a group that's making music together, that's what excites me really.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
What's your balance of teaching versus performance versus recording versus other kinds of musical work versus your other projects right now?
Yeah. Right now, there's more teaching going on, except for, I wouldn't call it performance. The therapeutic music work in a hospital is not really performance, but that's happening too.
Yeah, go
And
ahead and tell
then,
us a little more about that if you want to.
yeah, okay. But so there's more teaching, there's more festivals right now than performing because I don't have a regular band. It's more like pickups.
Hmm.
You know, I do annual shows every year, especially around the holidays, where I put together a group and
Hmm.
we rehearse if we can. And then
I was talking
this
to
time
Rick
of
Thumb
year,
at a festival a couple weeks ago, and he said a lot of times I rehearse with each member of the ensemble, but the ensemble never rehearses
oh,
together. So he'll like get together one on one with the different people to make sure everybody knows what's happening and their parts, but the actual bringing the whole group together happens on the stage. And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting approach to doing rehearsals when you've got a variety of people with a bunch of different schedules and you're trying to figure out
yeah,
how to
yeah.
get it to
I
come
mean, I
together.
think that that's valuable, but there's nothing like having the whole group together. You know,
Yeah, you can really work through some stuff if you're all in
yeah,
the same room.
absolutely. Um, yeah, so the therapeutic music, again, it was Karen Ashbrook that kind of, you know, blazed a trail for me. She'd been doing it for a long time, loved it, and just couldn't get enough of it. And she kept saying, because, you know, we're friends and we'll get together for lunch or whatever. You really need to do that. You should do that. You'd be good at it. And I'm like, oh, well, and finally I'm like, you know what? I think this does seem like a really good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a time investment because she led me to the program MHTP, Music for Healing and Transition program. And, there's several modules you have to complete. So it's like and plus the practicums, probably a couple of years from start to finish.
Yeah.
And right about the time I was ready to start my practicum, boom, COVID. So everything shut down. And, I couldn't do my practicum, which I was going to do at Georgetown Hospital. And then they try to do these like, well, you can do some of it online. And that, for whatever reason, just never worked out for me. So a few years go
I
by.
feel like it would be pretty hard to do a hospital care online.
I thought so too. Because I don't know, there's something about being in the same space with somebody where you pick up, I think you can be more intuitive, than looking at somebody on the screen. And
Right.
anyway,
Yeah.
but so I was thinking, oh, well, that was good training, but I'll never get to use it.
Yeah.
After things started opening up, Karen's like, well, aren't you going to do your practicum? And I said, well, a couple of years have gone by. And she said, that doesn't matter. So again, she's like, come on, get off your rear end and do this. So I finally did. And that particular hospital, Georgetown, has a wonderful arts and humanities program that's very supportive of the arts. Not just music, but they have visual arts. They have all kinds of online classes they do, and they spotlight different artists and put up their paintings and around the hospital. But there's a bunch of us. Karen works there. I work there. There's a violinist. There's a harpist. There's sometimes a cellist. There's a guitarist. So we, sometimes we overlap on the days, but it's so big. There's plenty of people to see.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's been amazing. That's just been, it's like, there's so much going on in the world that we have absolutely no control over, but you can make a difference to one person at a time.
That's pretty powerful, isn't it?
It's amazing, yeah. And not everybody, we usually get a list of people that are possible candidates to see. And sometimes it's not good timing and people will respectfully decline or whatever. But when you do make those connections, so just yesterday, for example, I was in there at the hospital working, and this one woman had never seen a dulcimer, had no idea what it was, I started playing and she kept saying, oh my God, that's amazing. That's beautiful. She was so moved by it, and people say things like, God sent you to me, and it makes a difference in people's day.
What's the patient demographic that you're usually working with?
It's very diverse, very diverse. We have a lot of international patients. Actually, that's one thing I need to, I've been learning a lot of music to play for not just for the patients, but for the staff and for people in waiting rooms and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Karen is really great about international music, and
Right.
I'm trying to add that to my repertoire because we may have people from Ethiopia. Sometimes people don't speak English.
Yeah.
There was a woman yesterday who's Russian. It's just a lot of variety.
Wow. Yeah. We do not have as much of that in rural Kansas. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I should learn international folk music because yep, nope, okay. No one here will ever recognize a Russian song if I learn one, but I'm not opposed to learning it because it is to me, it's really neat to see the way folk music traditions from all different parts of the world they might not necessarily have the same scales and patterns that we have,
Right.
but they definitely have scales and patterns that they're drawing from and trying to figure out it's really fun for me.
Yeah. Are you pursuing therapeutic music or?
Well, so interestingly, that was gonna be my career path. When I started college, my goal was to be a music therapist, and I was diverted from that path by having cancer. And my music was my therapy. And I ended up never going back to do the degree program for it, but talking to a lot of you folks who have done the music for healing and transition program, and Aubrey works in the children's hospital now, and she sort of built connections with the hospital without necessarily getting degrees and certifications, and has taught herself the work part of it. And I'm like, oh, it
Yeah.
still is definitely a thing that's near and dear to my heart, those music and therapeutic settings, and how powerful it can be. And
Yeah.
my mom is a physical therapist, and I remember reading about music therapy and telling Mom, stroke patients do really well if you play music for them when they're doing gait training and rehab. And she started trying it, and she would
Wow.
find music that her patients resonated with, and lo and behold, they had a more even gait when they
Oh
were
yeah.
relearning how to walk after a stroke, if she was playing music for them. And she was like, it's working. And I was like, this is so cool.
I know, it's pretty amazing. I was once involved in a program where we played music in a performance setting for Parkinson's patients, and you're right. They having that regular rhythm really helped focus their brains, and they did a whole dance to the music we played. It was amazing. Yeah,
Love it.
actually, it brought tears to my eyes because a good friend of mine was part of that group, and just to see her be able to put the Parkinson's on hold, however briefly, was really inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So what are you're doing the music in hospitals. What else are you sort of excited about in your current musical pursuits?
um, I'm excited about arranging music for the dulcimer. I love to do that. Um,
Yeah.
and I do that when like I said, in the hospital, I play for staff and for people in waiting rooms. And I like to play like stuff they're going to recognize in that situation. Sometimes, for patients, you don't necessarily want them to have to engage that part of their brain,
Hmm.
but for people just sort of in a waiting kind of a mode, I've been learning Disney music, and sometimes people sing along pop songs. And so I like taking a piece of music, whether it's for that kind of thing or for, teaching situations like some of the festivals. And um, distilling makes it sound like it's something lesser than, but that's kind of what I'm doing is like, I hear the chords, I hear the harmony movement. And obviously, if it's a piano piece, you got 10 fingers. But if it's a dulcimer piece, you basically have 2 fingers. How can you arrange it so that it has the same kind of harmonic movement and flow? And yeah, you might simplify it, but it's still that piece of music. So I like doing that. That
Yeah.
excites me.
When you're doing that, do you start from like a piano score or a chord chart, or do you do it primarily by ear as your starting point?
That's a really good question. My first instinct is ear,
Yeah.
because I'll hear it and I'll be like, but a lot of times I'll get like a lead sheet or a score so
Hmm.
I can keep myself honest. And sometimes there's things, oh yeah, I should put that in there, that particular note of the harmony that I neglected. So, but I kind of start from the ear.
Yeah. That's great. I'm just always curious, a lot of times I think um, our students have this notion that there's a single starting point. And then if
Yeah.
they feel like that's not the thing that they're solid for, then it can feel like, well, then I won't be able to arrange. And for me, often the starting point is some sort of a chart that I start from. And then I use that chart to help me recognize what I'm listening to. And
Hmm.
so the chart kind of helps me to use your term, distill the information that I'm hearing in the recording, where
Yeah,
sometimes if I just listen,
yeah,
I'm I have a hard time figuring out like which thing do I need to listen for at any given moment to figure it out. Like, am I just
yeah,
trying to find the melody or am I listening to the bass line? And so sometimes a chart gives me a helpful starting point, but
yeah,
then people are like, well, I can't read charts. And so hearing from different teachers that we all kind of start from different places and then draw from different kinds of resources in order to
yeah,
help us put it together.
yeah.
I like to kind of pull back the curtain sometimes on that process for people to understand that like there's a lot of ways that we get there from point A to point B.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no one right way,
How long on average do you spend on an arrangement? Does it,
You mean creating it
yeah, how
or
long does it take
playing
you
it?
to develop it?
Um,
Well, that's a question too, isn't it?
yeah. Some of them come real quick.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just like I think that my brain kind of processes stuff even when I'm not consciously thinking about it. Sometimes I'll wake up, in the middle of the night and I'll realize that tune I was working on is working in my head.
Yep.
That's kind of fun.
It is.
Like,
I'm working on a really complicated Tony Rice tune on my mountain dulcimer right now. And this is, in the bluegrass vein. Tony Rice is a great guitar player. And so
yeah,
I have a friend who encouraged me to learn it. I've been working on it and I've been getting stuck in this one place. And there was one night I was laying in bed and I'm like this close to being asleep. And all of a sudden my brain was like, you could refinger it this way. And I was like, it is the middle of the night. What are you doing? And then I just had to be like, okay, brain, well, I guess we're going to lay here and figure it out. So me and my brain sat there thinking through what are the notes and how was I trying to finger it. And now I'm fingering it a different way. And then I came to my instrument and sure enough, my middle
yeah,
of the night refiguring that part really made a big difference in the ease of playing it. But I was simultaneously like delighted and so frustrated.
I know. Like I
Like,
should
why
be
couldn't you have come up
sleeping.
with that when I had the instrument in my hand and I was practicing? No, no, not then.
What's really magical though, have you ever had this happen? Is like you're not aware of having worked on something while you're sleeping. And then you go to your instrument the next day and something that you had been stuck on is there. It's like, oh, you know,
Where'd that come from?
my brain processed it somehow and there it is.
Uh-huh.
So that's interesting too, which doesn't mean you won't like then lose it. So a lot of times, like I'll make sure I do a quick recording.
Uh-huh.
So I'll remember what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So sometimes I have, you mentioned Tony Rice. I've arranged a guitar piece or two in my time. And I find myself, I wonder if you do this too, wanting to really stay true to what the original artist, especially if they're the composer, did. So, within whatever the limitations are on your own instrument, trying to make it sound as much like the guitar did that
Mhm.
person played. Do you approach it that way too?
Yeah, I think that jazz and bluegrass have both influenced me in that way, where there's sort of the idea of the head, which is a pretty defined thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the idea of the improvisation around it. And so
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of times like even on this Tony Rice tune that I'm working on, Tony Rice plays the melody clearly at the beginning and then all of the other instruments in the band play something which is a
Right.
variation of that.
Right.
And then again, Tony Rice plays the melody, this time with some other variations in it. And so I'm like, okay, so I want to learn the tune the way that
Right.
first time through is so that I have an understanding of the head or the melody that the composer wrote.
The gist of it.
But there's also all of this space where each instrument then interprets that in their own way.
Yeah.
And
That's
because
especially true in
I'm
bluegrass.
not playing the mandolin or the guitar or the
Yeah.
dobro. It's like, okay, well, that's giving me space and permission then to find how it works on my instrument. So
Right.
I'm at the point of like I want to get the melody down, but then I'm
Yeah.
gonna probably start taking out some of the things that are not as intuitive on my instrument and putting in something in its place that's more fitting my approach on the mountain dulcimer
Mhm.
specifically, so that I'm creating, yes, I know the melody, but I'm also creating that
Yeah.
more unique approach to it. So I
Yeah.
think that jazz and bluegrass have kind of influenced me in those ways, in a different way than like classical music kind of has. Well, if you create variations, then you also write those down.
Yes, right. Yeah, it's more structured.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for this conversation, Jody. Quickly tell us, how can people find you, find out more about you? Do you have space to take on new students if somebody hears this and goes, "Ooh, I want to learn from that person"?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm happy to. I love teaching, so that's anybody can contact me through my website, jodymarshall.net, or Jody at. See, what's my email? The email's on in the website
Go to
too.
the website to find the email. Yeah.
It's like, what is your own phone number? You never call it.
And you've got some books and albums on your website too that
I
folks
do.
can look at. So, yeah,
Hmm.
that's wonderful. Yay. Well, thank you
Hey.
so much for sharing this conversation with me today.
Oh, it's been tons of fun. Thank you for asking.
And I also just want to throw in a quick pitch for the Dulcimoon Summer Fundraiser, which is going on right now. We have 3 weeks to go. So, our summer fundraiser is largely helping us keep these conversations going and have even more of them. And to also, so far, they've all been on YouTube solely, but we want to move into also having them available through all the podcast players so that we can cast a wider net out into our community to make sure these stories are told and preserved and shared. So, I think the link to the summer fundraiser is in the description of this video, and we'll also put it in the chat to make sure that you can find it if you want to pitch in a few dollars to help us keep this going. So, thank you, listeners. Thank you, Jody. We'll see you all
Thank
down
you,
the road.
May. Thank you, DJ. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Is it a
Hi.
wrap?
It's a wrap. Yay!